Joining us in studio to discuss the implications and revelations that have been exposed from WikiLeaks and talk about his brand new book, The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East, Walid Phares. Walid, welcome in studio.
Thank you. Wonderful studio.
At KilmeadeandFriends.com, you can go check us out live. You can watch these. The cameras are here for Walid. First off, some of the revelations from the Middle East perspective on, and we have to see if Assange is going to be detained and if he's going to release more information that's going to be diplomatically damaging to us and our security. But some of the revelations that have come out, that Saudi Arabia is still the #1 financier, not the government, but the donors, but the people of al-Qaeda, that Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, all want us to take out Iran. They look at them as evil and a security threat. I mean, tell me about some of the things that have been exposed. Well, and the damage.
Two very important things, Brian. Number one is, as you just said, that these Arab moderate countries have been talking to us, the previous and the current administration, asking the United States to do the job. But when it will come to them footing the bill, supporting, containing Hezbollah in Lebanon, or doing some pressure on Iran, they refuse because they are members of the Organization of Islamic Conference. They cannot be seen doing this stuff, so they want us to do it.
But they see it as a nuclear threat, and a nuclear Iran they see as a big-time threat.
Absolutely. A nuclear Iran means for them a strong Iran that could do things against them, against the Saudi Arabians. Look, Iran is behind an uprising in Yemen, northern Yemen. Iran is now penetrating Iraq. Iran is funding Hezbollah in Lebanon to control Lebanon. Iran is all over. It's a little Soviet Union in the area, and the Arab Sunni moderates knows that. But the problem is that they want us to do the job, and they don't want to appear as a partner with us.
Yeah, but it also exposes something else, that we're actually saying what we're saying. They're saying, but we're saying behind closed doors what we're saying in front of the world, that they're a threat, they're a problem, and we're maneuvering to address that problem. And others see the same threat, they just don't have the courage to admit it.
Not just the courage. There is an ethical issue here, there's an ideological issue here. When I go in Arab media, I do that every 2 days at least, representatives from these countries are saying, there is an Arab concern about American foreign policy. Every single day they say, if America just changes its position with regard to the Arab-Israeli conflict, if America withdraws from Iraq, on the surface. And then in the afternoon, perhaps they're talking to U.S. officials saying that to them, Iran is going to invade us, you've got to do your job, so on and so. This dual approach, now is exposed.
We have a situation where there's no anti-terror policy in Kuwait. There's no anti-terror policy in Qatar. It's not illegal to be a member of al-Qaeda, correct? In Pakistan, they're basically not helping us at all in ridding their country of the Taliban and al-Qaeda. So why do you think we are looking at something that could have a little bit of hope of a revolution in the Islamic world? Will they begin to realize they should live their lives and not live their lives to fight America and Western countries?
Look, I wrote this book to just demonstrate to the average American Western international reader that in the Middle East you have two maps. One which you are very familiar with, al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Iran, the dictatorship, what have you. On the other hand, there is a map of people who are powerless, but they come to the front when needed. 1.5 million people demonstrated where? In Tehran, the capital of Iran. 1.5 million people demonstrated where? In Beirut, controlled by Hezbollah. You have the people in Darfur coming up. You have the people of the Kabyle in Algeria. So you have another map in the Middle East of people who have enough, and they want to do much. We are not helping them. We're not assisting them.
What do you mean? What kind of help do they want? They want America meddling in their affairs?
Of course not. What they want is America not to meddle in their affairs by not partnering with those regimes and with the Islamists. The policy that we have now over the past 2 years is to sit down and talk with the Taliban, with Hezbollah, with the Iranian regime. And we are not talking with those young people, women, students, artists, cab drivers in Tehran. We're not talking to their NGOs.
But that's the problem, Walid. If we go deal with the government, let's say, of Yemen, people don't like that government. They don't respect his rules and policies. But if we want to get to al-Qaeda, we deal with the government. Just like we did during the whole Cold War. We dealt with dictatorships because we didn't want them to become communist.
Exactly what we did in the Cold War, especially in the last few years. I am taking your quote. We spoke with Moscow. We spoke with the communists. We did a lot of things to address issues in the world. At the same time, we gave visibility, not thanks, to Lech Walesa and Solidarity in Poland. We spoke about Václav Havel. We spoke about the dissidents, Sharansky, all over the world. And we actually helped, people who are pushing for democracy in Latin America while we were talking with the regime. So the government to government is one thing, but people to people is something else we need to do.
All right, so we're going to tell the Saudis, for example, who make women ride in the back seat, they're not allowed to own property, they're not allowed to divorce their husbands, or all these things that we look at as archaic. I do anyway. So if we deal with a government that enforces those laws, or if we decide to support the next female Gandhi there that wants to reform society, the government's going to say, wait a second, you're helping foment unrest in our society. We're not going to do deals with you. Do you see how we could be working against ourselves?
Well, WikiLeaks are very helpful because they are telling us that they would do deal with us. They need us because we're going to tell them, if you don't allow a measure of democracy, if you are upset because we have been meeting with your dissidents here, don't tell us in secret that you are afraid of Iran.
I just wonder, don't these people want lives in which they test their mettle, unless they try to reach their potential, where they go to school, find a career, raise a family, have get-togethers? Don't these people have daughters that want a decent shot at life? How do they sleep at night knowing that their women will never have a shot at freedom and happiness?
Well, precisely, Brian. These are the people I'm trying to talk about. I'm alerting Americans that you need to reach out to them. The average
Are women upset in the Muslim
Yes,
world?
they are. I mean, but how do you know about it if they don't have a microphone, if they don't have a TV station, if every media isn't controlled by the petrodollars, by the famous pro-jihadi networks? How would you know? That's why, for example, we need to use our media, Voice of America, Al Hurra, all the media that we are funding. Open it to the dissidents. Let them talk. Not thanks, talk.
Yeah, that would be good. So in terms of this administration taking over, has there been any change? For example, when we find out that al-Qaeda's funding is still coming from Saudi Arabia predominantly, could I assume that was the same thing in 2005? Because I thought we were beginning to convince them that al-Qaeda was their enemy too.
No, there was a change, and that change can be seen not just from the beginning of this administration, but when Congress changed in 2006, you've seen a retreat on all fronts. You've seen the extremists, the jihadists, the Salafists, the Khomeinists, everybody coming stronger and stronger. Unfortunately, when we are symbolically not standing with the civil societies, as was the case, the biggest case was, Brian, when the President Obama, on the day where there was 1 million people on the streets of Tehran, said, we're not going to meddle. That is not what Reagan said when there were demonstrations in the streets of Warsaw and elsewhere. It's an issue of position.
Now, so you see some unrest in the Muslim world. What percentage of the Muslim world do you think supports or takes part in terror?
You have, research has demonstrated that at one edge, 5 to 8% of an average Muslim majority country, 5 to 7 to 8%, has been impacted by Wahhabism, Salafism. But on the other hand, on the other side, you have about 10 to 12% of people who would take the streets, meaning the pro-democracy people are larger in numbers, weaker in assets.
Now, most Muslim arrests that take place in our country of a would-be terrorist, most of the tips come from Muslims, correct?
Absolutely. There is a warfare going on inside the Muslim community, those who are pro-jihadists on the one hand, and those who are counter-jihadists on the other hand. You've got here many people who came on your show, like Zuhdi Jasser and many other people, NGOs, who really want to fight the battle. But of course, they are not funded because the other side is, more visible. It has been supported by the regimes in the region.
You look at some of these WikiLeaks exposures, as your book is out, Walid, when you look at the fact that the Muslim world essentially still looks to us as their protector, you wonder why they don't feel obligated to come forward more and compliment America.
Well, because those regimes who looks at us as their protector from Iran, for example, or the other terrorists like Al-Qaeda in Yemen, at the same time, they want to tell their own constituency that, they are not pro-American. They are playing a double game. Qatar, for example, which is hosting the soccer game.
The World Cup in 2022 over us.
Over the United States.
What an embarrassment that is.
We have been protecting Qatar. We have forces in Qatar, but they have been fueling, with the petrodollars, for the last 10 years, the biggest indoctrination program through Al Jazeera. Right. So you have a dual approach here.
Now, you pointed out something in the break I never thought about. Under Bush, we had basically one pickup a year of a domestic terror attack. One a year for 8 years. Yeah. And, of course, the big one, 9/11. And now what kind of cadence do you think we're on right now? What kind of pace?
Numbers are everything in this case. Between 01 and 08, and it's in the open source information, we had, as a U.S. government, stopped or tried to stop one case a year.
I just got to interrupt you. A UK judge has just denied bail for Julian Assange, so he will stay in prison right now. Mark Stevens is his lawyer, and if you're watching TV, he's trying to cover Lens and just get out of there, but he leaves without his client. But go ahead.
So between 01 and 08, we had stopped one case of jihadi terror in America a year. Since the beginning of 09 till now, it's one case a month. Over the past 6 months, it's 2 to 3 cases a month that we are stopping. What would that mean? It is mushrooming. What would that mean? It means that they feel that the moment for them is now to act against the United States.
But why do they feel as though they can?
Because on the one hand, we have done one thing important. We've asked our analysts in America, that was 2 years ago, at the beginning of the administration, not to use words such as jihad, Islamism, caliphate. Every single word which in the code would tell us how to detect them, we took out. Imagine, we are fighting the jihadists with no radar, with no AWACS in terms of counterterrorism. They know that. So we can only find them at the very last moment. How did we stop the Christmas Day bomber? The last day, he was over the skies of Detroit.
Yeah. It was a passenger.
A Dutch passenger stopped him. In most cases now, on our soil almost, at the very last moment, we're stopping them. While this guy was blogging about jihadism 5 years ago or 4 years ago, 2005.
Right.
So that is encouraging them.
And, his dad reported him. We know that. And we also know that this latest case was a situation where people inside the Muslim community reported this would-be bomber, this 19-year-old that wanted to blow up all those people celebrating the Christmas tree at that city.
Yes, in Oregon. Well, look, inside the Muslim community, there's a big debate happening now in America whereby you have an increasing number of Muslim anti-jihadist American citizens who are saying we are warning government that radicalization is happening. But to do something about it, you've got to go against the ideology. The Obama administration, unfortunately, does not want to do that.
Ethan, in Canada, you're on Kilmeade and Friends. Say hello to Walid Phares, author of The Coming Revolution. Okay. Let's go to Mark in Atlanta. Now, Mark, you know what, Mark? Let me keep that right here for a second, because what I like to talk to you about, Walid, before I have to let you go, is that there's people out here who want to blame America. They want to blame America for the problem in the Muslim world. They want to blame it on poverty. But I think they got to be disabused of that notion, because Muhammad Atta had money. Zawahiri was a doctor. Bin Laden was a multimillionaire.
If people who have money in the Arab world, those who are producing oil, will start helping the poor people in Saudi, in Bangladesh, they will solve the problem. Every family in Gaza could become middle class if the oil-producing regimes will start to help. Come on. The biggest, wealthiest blocks of money exist where? In UAE, in Qatar, in the region.
Have you read the Quran?
Of course I've read the Quran.
And when you read the Quran, can you see how it could be taken as a motivation for violence?
The Quran, there are verses in the Quran. It's a very old issue. Arab countries, including the Saudis themselves, who are, claiming that they are very Islamic, they say that there are verses in the Quran that the jihadists can actually use to mobilize, against their enemies, of course.
So when people say, could you use the Bible and say, well, there's violence in the Bible, that gives Christians the right to attack?
The difference is,
do you see the similarity?
Similarity, you cannot compare religion to religion, but in the Bible, you may probably, if you are very extreme, use one or two, but in the Quran, there are injunctions, just different. The Bible is a history of a narrative. In the Quran, you have guidance. And whenever you have guidance, then the jihadists can use them.
And they can use it as interpretation.
They can use the interpretation.
All right. In this war on terror, how would Walid Phares label it?
Well, first of all, I would want basically to see the United States, the next Congress is very important to help us in doing two things. educating the American public about what is the nature of the confrontation we're in. Number two, working with the dissidents around the Arab and Muslim world to force them or to force the regimes to accept democracy in the region.
Do you believe the CIA has identified those we can depend on?
Oh, I'm sure that the CIA, the State Department, don't need to go as far as the CIA, and even our NGOs here on K Street, L Street in Washington, D.C. could determine all these people, because today you have the internet, you have open source. It's not like long time ago.
In this book, you say coming revolution. How soon? And when revolution for freedom, for democracy, they could be coming to the Muslim world. How soon?
It is coming. It has been happening. It depends on how we're going to basically support them. Iran is going to experience a revolution. The Green Movement is not down. It's going to continue. Lebanon is going to experience the Cedars Revolution. Sudan in 1 month is going to have a referendum on the freedom in the south, and then in Darfur. In Algeria, you have the Kabyle Berber population going up, and you have online a revolution by women, by younger women and students. It is going to happen. The jihadists are on the rise. The democracy forces are on the rise.